Hello everybody, welcome back to yet another video, and to yet another 24 Fun Facts from Cars Adventures episode. Today I'm going to be going over 24 Fun Facts from Cars Adventures Season 24, so that's one fun fact for every single episode. Maybe sometimes I'll throw in a second one. Anyway though guys, let's get started with 24-1, Radiator Springs the Silent Film. Despite this episode being fully muted and in black and white, I actually recorded all of the dialogue for the episode so that when I was editing, I knew what to write down. Here's a completely unedited shot from the episode. Maybe I'll even upload an unedited version eventually, but here's just a clip of the episode, not muted and in color.
Hey Stickers, how'd you sleep?
The Wheels of Fury series mentioned in episode 24-2, Meet the Director, is of course a parody of the Fast and Furious series, and how that movie series just has so many installments now. Episode 24-3, Mater's Pitch, is all a big reference to the Screen Rant YouTube channel's pitch meeting series, and the music chime that plays at the end of the episode when the Radiator Race thumbnail pops up is actually taken directly from an episode of the series. In Dusting Off, episode 4 of the season, we see that Prop Wash Junction is just a total mess and nobody's coming there anymore. That was actually not only made to be a reference to Radiator Springs, and it stayed at the beginning of the first Cars movie, but I meant for it to be a reference to the Planes franchise as a whole, and how it's all just gone downhill. Episode 5, Air Devils, was originally going to be called The Mother of All Stunts. About 4 or 5 more minutes of footage in the episode The Tailgate Situation, 24-6, was cut. Originally, the episode was supposed to be much longer and incorporate scenes where McQueen and Tailgate just continued their argument for about 5 more minutes, but eventually Tailgate switched sides and became good again. Eventually, I found myself, in editing, disappointed with how the episode turned out, and instead of reshooting it, I just decided to cut out all that footage, therefore allowing Tailgate to still be around and still be a challenge for the characters. I just didn't think it was time to switch her back just yet. Bonus fun fact for this episode, the thumbnail, which shows McQueen and Tailgate near the Cozy Cone, was actually taken based off of a scene that was cut. I don't have much to say about 24-7, Finding Guido, aside from the obvious. The title is a reference to Finding Nemo. But I will say this is the most viewed episode in this season, and one of the most viewed episodes of the whole Cars Adventure series. So thank you guys so much for checking it out. It currently has over 900 views, and I'm really glad you guys enjoyed the episode, because this is one of my favorites as well. In episode 24-8, Poolside Duel, you'll find a really awkward cut at around the 5-minute mark, where Mater hits Tailgate, there's a really loud clanging noise, and then it turns out she was, like, right next to him. Originally, what I wanted to do was just have that be an uncut shot. Just have him hit Tailgate, she'd be on the ground, and then the fighting scene would continue. But I accidentally knocked Tailgate off of the sink I was filming this on, and she just hit the floor, and that's what that loud noise was. I titled episode 24-9 Goodbye Dusty to kind of leave his fate up in the air through the title. Of course, reading the title, you'd probably think Dusty was going to die in the episode, but in this case, Goodbye Dusty means a completely different thing. Dusty leaves in the episode because, of course, he gets amnesia. Also, by the way, the scene where Dusty just goes around insulting all the tuners has got to be one of my favorites in the season. His lines where he asks Wingo if his spoiler's a stepladder, and especially his line, "Why are you wearing lipstick? You're a car," that he says to Chisaki, are two of my favorite lines in the whole season. Episodes 24-10 and 24-11, those are Meet the Cast and Lights Camera, were both recorded while I was sick, so for my facts for those 2 episodes, I'm just going to go through some more general statements that I wouldn't really be able to fit in anywhere else, because the episodes aren't really all that much since, again, I filmed them while I was sick. Especially Meet the Cast, which is basically just 5 minutes of a conversation. But again, since I was sick, I gave myself a pass to make a much more simplistic episode. You could tell I was getting better because in Lights Camera, there are many more shots, whereas, while this episode, on the other hand, is basically just one long drawn-out sequence. Anyway, though, I just want to tell you guys a bit about the monster trucks. The ice creamer in my series having the Australian accent is all a reference to his cameo in season 23 when DJ mentions having a weird dream about a monster truck, ice cream truck, offering ice cream and saying he can't have any. The tuba pity that we see in 24-11 Lights Camera continues the running joke of the character that his mouth is just stuck to the tuba and therefore all of his lines are muffled by it. This joke has been going on in the series for over a year. One of the scenes in episode 24-12, Lightning's movie, was accidentally lost. I have no idea what happened to it. I guess I just wasn't recording during it. And so one of McQueen from the Future's scenes actually was just a scene of him that had already been shown in the episode, just redubbed and edited down to make it look like it was a different shot. Also, McQueen from the Future's design, just being Heavy Metal McQueen, is a reference to Nightmare, a character that my friend Fabulous Cars Fan 129 came up with quite a while back. At this point in the season, I was beginning to run into an issue. Heather isn't the villain of Cars Adventures Season 24. Despite her actions, I was trying to make sure she didn't seem like a villain. And 24-13, Boom, where she blows up the tuner's house, was pretty difficult. And by that I mean that, as well as McQueen's movie and Lights Camera, were all kind of tricky for me because I didn't want Heather to seem downright evil. And hopefully she didn't come off that way. Maybe she was kind of a jerk, but I didn't want her to seem like she was completely, totally evil, because in my eyes she really isn't a villain. She wanted to make the movie in Radiator Springs. She didn't have the best time with it. And I felt like at this point I had done the character seems good but is actually evil thing way too many times in the series with characters like Mike and Dee Dee, Mike especially, and Barry D. Petal, and a whole bunch of other guys. So, in the case of this, I just tried to make sure Heather didn't seem all that downright cruel. Like, for example, she and even Ramon didn't know that the house they were blowing up here was the tuner's house. And I feel like that sort of justifies her actions for blowing their house up. No, I'm not going around saying, hey, damage people's property if you don't know whose it is. But in this case, since the house seems so abandoned, I made it so that Heather and Ramon thought they knew what they were doing, at least. In episode 24-14, we see the tuners try to rebuild their house. Of course, the episode's called Another House Bites the Dust. I actually had to take apart the tuner house in between seasons 23 and 24. That's why the first time we see the tuner house is more than halfway through this season. So I just very quickly came up with a whole Chisaki and Dusty plotline. Originally, much more of it was supposed to take place at the tuner's house. Originally, the tuners had a whole plotline resolving around H.J. Hollis, which I ended up cutting out. Maybe I'll adapt it in a future season. I don't really like how that concept turned out. And, you know, beyond that, I had to fully rebuild the tuner house. And right after I did it, I had to blow it up for this episode. Or, sorry, the episode before this. Episode 24-15, Lightning vs. Nigel Gearsley, had a whole cut opening sequence. Originally it was supposed to start completely differently, and the scene of McQueen that we see was originally supposed to be at around the 2 or 3 minute mark. Eventually I changed it so that this was the first scene, and decided to scrap the original scenes. Shameless plug time! You could actually see the original opening in the blooper video that I did as a companion to this one. I really enjoyed making it. There's like a whole 2 minutes of me trying to chase down a bird that was interrupting my filming. Link for that will be in the description. Episode 24-16, Fillmore Moves Out, was originally going to be a tuner episode where DJ, Boost, and Wingo, but more so DJ, get jobs editing the movie. It would have taken place in Sarge's surplus hut, and jokes would have consisted of the three of them talking about the importance of editing and messing around with sound effects. But as long as we're on the subject of the importance of editing, the joke about the importance of film editing actually made it in the next episode, 24-17, The Truth About the Movie, where a scene is shown where I stop filming and just put the camera down and start rehearsing the next scene, just as a joke about how important editing is. Episode 24-18, Thunderstrike McKing, begins a two-part special where we see a large chunk of the movie that was going to be filmed in Radiator Springs. We see a large portion of it. Originally, this was supposed to take up the whole end of the season, but eventually I decided on focusing the finale on Extreme instead. We do get confirmation that an edited down version of the movie exists later on, after everybody gives up on the movie and Ramon goes off to re-edit it, and maybe I'll show that re-edited version in the future, but it would be cut down to be the length of a single episode. In episode 24-19, The Exploding Shack, we of course see a scene where Ramon gets captured and put into the tuner's house right before it explodes, and he escapes just in the nick of time. I actually filmed this scene back while I was filming 24-13, Boom, the episode where I blew up the tuner house. I just made sure to save it until now. Also, of course, the footage, if you can already tell, of the tuner house blowing up in this episode is the exact same as what was shown in Boom, just edited to look darker. This episode lied to you. The end of the season lied to you. The episode Extreme, the 20th episode of the season, and the subsequent episodes lie. Because I went back and rewatched the original episode with Extreme in it, and it turns out his name is actually Excitement. Oops. Alright, so yeah, I made a mistake. The guy's name in his original appearances was Excitement, not Extreme. I was close enough. But you know what? I'll come up with a canonical reason right now. Extreme decided he no longer liked the name Excitement, so he just changed it to Extreme. You see, people began to think that he was actually like a clown for children's birthday parties, because his name was Excitement, so he had to change it to Extreme. That's Cars Adventures canon now, guys. I just made that up on the spot. Going into this season, I knew I wanted it to be about a monster truck race. I, of course, eventually changed it so that the monster truck race would be a part of the movie being filmed in Radiator Springs, but then I changed it back so that Lightning and Mater were part of the monster truck race. The monster truck race that we would have seen in the finale, if I had gone through with it all just being the Thunderstrike McKing movie, would have basically been identical to what we saw, except without Extreme there to make it a bit more intense. I didn't want to disappoint people by not showing the rest of the movie, and once again, I probably will in the future, maybe in season 24 if I decide to continue the Heather plot point while we're still wrapping it up here. And so I decided to include the fight scene between Ramon and Nigel Gearsley, just to show what the final battle of the movie would have looked like. Originally, the monster trucks as characters were very, very different. Originally, the three monster trucks, of course, being Patio Concrete, the Ice Screamer, and the Rastakarian, were all going to be full, flat-out villains. I even originally planned for them to join the Next Gens, and the Lemons, and the Evil Tuners, and the Thunder Hollow crew as major antagonists, but instead I decided to just make them nice guys. I mean, they are only actors after all. That's what I decided on after I decided to make the season about a movie being filmed in Radiator Springs. And yeah, I decided to keep them antagonistic, but only in the movie where they'd be playing villains. I was originally even after I decided to just make them the movie villains, I was still going to make them a little bit mean. I was planning on making an episode where the three monster trucks just become more and more demanding in their dressing rooms and everything. But that episode sadly never made it, along with a whole lot of other things from this season. But regardless, I just decided to make them nice guys, and who knows, maybe they'll pop up uh, in a hero role later on down the line, maybe in a fight scene. In episode 24-23, to the extreme, referring to Lightning as Bub, and some of his other lines are all just a parody of Wolverine of all characters. I don't know, I was doing a really overly intense voice for Extreme that I just came up with. And I was like, you know who else would probably use a voice like this? Wolverine, that's who it reminded me of. So I just, in this episode, made him sound a little bit more like Wolverine. I really enjoyed this season's credits. I really like how I used the credits of this season to not just have like some big character dance party, and instead just sort of wrap up any character threads that were loose throughout the season. I just kind of wrap it up and set everything up for next season, The Racer Who Got Away. So, there are a whole lot of cameos in there. Of course, we see Fillmore's house get back into place. We see the Tuners still struggling with their house. Chisaki's new life in Prop Lost Junction. Sally and Storm racing, which was almost cut. I didn't know how much footage I had for that scene, and if it went over the length of the song and the length of the necessary credits, that scene of Sally and Jackson racing was the one I was going to cut out. And of course, we see Rod Torque Redline and two of his agents, 1616 and 1333, both pop up there. But originally, there was going to be a scene with Dusty and the two doctors. During the credits, instead, I just changed it so that Dusty was only mentioned in the episode instead of just shown. I'm not quite sure what I'll do with Dusty's character next, but you probably won't see him for a little while. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. I hope you all enjoy Season 25.